Welcome to the Educational Physics Podcast. I am your host, João Figueiredo. This podcast is all about education, pedagogy, mindset, and really any other nonsense that I think about during the week. Enjoy. Today's podcast is a conversation with Dr. Jessica Pitt. Dr. Pitt is the author of the book Taking a Learner-Centred Approach to Music Education. This is the book, and I am truly honored and excited to be talking to such an authority in music education, which of course is also my main focus currently, but I will also be exploring broader topics such as philosophy, search for meaning, and just the general human need for learning. We will talk about love, facilitating education, understanding the students' emotions, and fundamentally we'll touch on all things learning and education. The book is Taking a Learner-Centred Education Approach to Music Education, and I hope you guys enjoy the conversation. So, first and foremost, I want to thank you for doing this today. I wanted to ask to start this off about your backstory. I have already given an introduction, so pre-recording, I always shoot a little video introducing the guests. But I'm curious as to how you've gotten into education, what led you there, what's the background?
Oh, okay. Well, it's a real pleasure to meet you and to be part of this podcast. So thank you so much for the invitation.
My pleasure.
Well, my backstory, I guess, is like everyone's. It's got many routes to get you to where you find yourself. But way back in the 70s, I studied music in education at a wonderful place called Dartington College. And then for several years, I did different things. I worked for the British Council and moved, in fact, with my husband, we went on overseas placements. And it was while we were in Kenya that I had my children. I was doing a lot of playing. I was playing in lots of concerts and things. But it was there that we had our children. And it was actually through having a baby that I rediscovered something about music that I hadn't really understood before. It was this very deep connection that can happen through a caregiver and a very small child that just sparked an awakening of what really music can be about. So it was then that I really became ignited with something new, and started a small music group in my home in Nairobi. But the wonderful thing about living overseas is you meet people from all over the world. And we then moved to the Netherlands, and one of my Dutch friends sent me a pamphlet about a new course that was started in Holland. I think it had been running for a couple of years by the time we got there, to PGCE, but to work specifically with with parents and very young children, to work in early childhood music. And I knew that this is something that I wanted to do. I didn't speak any Dutch, but I managed to get on the course with an audition, and they kindly interviewed me in English. And it was through studying this course that I not only learnt the language, but I got this professional qualification to teach in this particular area. So I then worked in the Netherlands in a variety of early childhood contexts, arts and culture centres, running programmes for parents and young children, and working with nurseries and nursery practitioners. So that's where this particular interest really developed. And then returning back to UK, I continued working in this field, and found a group of very like-minded people where I live. And the turning point for a new direction came when I was part of a research project in a children's centre close to where I live. And this opened my eyes to going yet deeper, understanding yet more. And so I took some additional courses in sociology and all sorts of other areas to expand my understanding of early childhood and working together with multiple disciplines. And eventually had a big enough question to pursue a PhD in the subject. And so slowly, these things all grow, don't they? It's an incremental process, and they're sort of milestone moments. And then the PhD really led me into the area of research and teaching in higher education. So now I work as a part-time lecturer in music education at Royal College, lead the MA in Early Years Music at the Centre for Research in Early Childhood in Birmingham, and on the side, I'm a trustee of the Music Educators and Researchers of Young Children charity, and director of an early childhood music arts company that does all kinds of wonderful creative projects with young children and their families, and that's called Magic Acorns. So that's it in a nutshell. Long life story.
That's quite interesting, and I can relate to the living abroad and how that influences our perspectives. As I've done quite a bit of traveling myself, but on top of everything you've done, you wrote this book that I'm going to show here. And I've spoken about this in that introduction that I've recorded previously. So I wanted to ask you, what was the motivation behind writing the book?
Well, with all things, I'm sure you know this. It's about relationships and finding people with a like mind and a like spirit, isn't it? And when you've met those people. And part of the wonderful thing about my area and working in research and education is that one gets to attend conferences. And it was at a conference that I encountered Laura, who really was the driving force behind this book. And she's a Finnish music educator working at Helsinki Metropolia University of Applied Sciences. And we understood each other at a very, when that you've got a real deep level of understanding about what you believe education and music is all about. And so it was through discussions we realised that there probably was a book here that we could write together about the perhaps less spoken about elements of music education or education in general, the sort of the underlying knowledges and skills that we use that we don't necessarily articulate, but they're there, and they're the fundamental things that make a teaching learning situation effective or right for that learner. So those were the things we wanted to really think about, the perhaps less spoken about knowledges and understandings of what it is to be an educator.
Yes. Well, obviously, it's on the title. The focus of the book was learner-centered education. That is also one of my personally main focuses these days, more and more. Just as a quick tangent, my background is also as a musician, but nowadays I'm more focused on educational psychology. So there's a lot of overlap here in what I talk about and what I also write about. So I wanted to ask you if you could give us a definition for learner-centered education. What would that be?
Wow, it's a huge topic, really, but I suppose it kind of taps into the focus that we take in our teaching moment. Goran Fogstad talks about moving from thinking about teaching to thinking about learning. So if we focus very often on how to teach, what to teach, and the results we're going to achieve as a teacher, we can get really caught up about everything to do with learning about music. But if we focus more about what is there to be learned and the content of that learning and how that learning process is going to go on, it changes the focus towards it puts the learner really at the center of things, and it's being then together in a learning process. And I think that's a subtle shift. It's a shift in one's perspective. It's not so much about achieving accessible and measurable outcomes, and that is what we can often get caught up with. It's more about the learner and the learning group as a creative process.
There's two threads that I would like to pull from. First, also from the book, that separation, if you will, that you both made around quality and quantity. And of course, as we know, the current system is very quantity oriented. It's all about results and grades and rankings and but one thing that you do point out in the book is that there is a balance to be met that's not to be thrown out the window. How do you find that balance? Because it's so easy to go one way or the other.
Yeah. Again, I think we're really in a bind in having a standardized curriculum. It's nobody's fault, and I can understand why we have it. But the trouble is, with a standardized document, there are assumptions there about a universal child or a universal learner, that this is a standardized document that assumes that every 5-year-old will be the same. And everyone's background, it doesn't take account of our social cultural backgrounds, it doesn't take account of our life experiences, and it almost implies that there is it takes a view, I suppose, of knowledge being out there, or a whole series of facts that one just transfers and then can measure. So that's a kind of situation that we find ourselves in, and that's why we end up having to measure things and assess things, because it's a national standardized document, and it's nobody's fault, and I can see why we have it. However, if one knows one's learners, and there's so many fantastic teachers that work within this document so brilliantly, who know their learners. They know the abilities and the capacities of their, and the competencies of their learning group, and they can work within that framework, but still create activities that enable everyone to thrive. So I think it's not about not achieving these assessed measurable outcomes. It's also about something else, and you can have both.
Yeah, I agree. It is a very interesting notion. Like I can share with you, and I'm sure you know this better than I do, that when studying humanistic education, for instance, which is basically the underpinning philosophy of learner-centered education, it always came across to me as a bit too far over to that side, and there was a bit too much. How do I even put it? Like, too much freedom. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but and I could see how it could lead to children sometimes feeling a little lost. But simultaneously, I also do believe, and you guys reinforce that in the book beautifully, the idea of educators becoming facilitators of the process, which is, of course, a Carl Rogers idea of basically getting out of the way. The classics of Greek philosophy believed in the same. This has been going on for a long time. And like you said, because of the need to create some sort of uniform, one-size-fits-all education system, we've lost touch with that, with just being in the moment and present. And that's going to lead into my next question, which is, for you, how important and how also to carry that out is fascination, curiosity, and that idea that you speak about in the book of pedagogical love.
Yeah, well, these are in a sense easier things for me to say coming from the early childhood perspective. Um, I think that there are several things you asked me there, but fascination with the growth of the other, which in fact Max van Manen talks about, is so incredibly important, I think, to me, that it's less about the focus on what it is I'm going to be facilitating, but more about what does this person need to grow? What does this group need to grow? And how can I enable the scaffolds to be there and the structures to be there to support what needs to be? And it's a subtle shift, but actually, if one has that curiousness about a learning situation and what learners are capable of, it can be. I think people can know it and feel it. Learners can know it and feel it, even though it's an intangible thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about the notion of love and caring and professional love, which Dr. Jules Page initially mooted the idea, and I absolutely love this idea. Of course, it's fundamental to early childhood. Early childhood education is wrapped up with care. But it's enabling this caring to be part of, in a sense, a compassion and a professional love for the situation, so that everyone feels held and supported. So I think it's about scaffolding and knowing what the right choices are in the moment, which brings us to a sort of reflective practice and reflecting in the moment and then on that moment and then after the moment, so that one can, with a deeply reflective attitude, think about what really went well and what could be altered slightly to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fortunate to have worked with some absolutely amazing practitioners who, one recent project was with children with speech language communication needs. So they were not really using words much. And we worked with their parents and speech and language therapists and musicians together. And this pedagogical approach that arose through working together was focused totally on observing. Observation first, waiting, listening, and then responding. And so that's a scary, risky place to be. Relying on the fact that a 2.5-year-old with no words was a competent musician, able to express musically, and we would wait for that and then listen and respond. But by removing the words, stopping talking, and allowing this sound play to dominate, it became very empowering for everyone. So I think that's a sort of example of what I mean about the fascination with the other, creating an environment which is safe enough for everyone to take that risk, and then in acknowledging that everyone is a competent musical expresser and having that absolutely at the heart of what you do, competence and not deficit. So that enables then something marvelous and magical to happen.
Right, that's a very interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Starting from the standpoint of, yeah, we are all capable of doing this, not versus, I guess, you're not yet capable of doing this, which is
Precisely.
I guess where most teachers come from. Even when they have the best intentions at heart, they come from that place of like, you don't know that yet. Here I am to save the day. Yes, that's very interesting. So
that's a notion of John Locke's idea of the blank slate, isn't
yes.
it? And so we see our role to fill this empty vessel with all our knowledge. And that's one way to think about young children or your learners. But actually, there are other ways to think about children with rights and with abilities and competencies, not in a state of becoming, but in a state of being in this moment. So I think those are, these deep sort of constructions of how we construct childhood can influence very much how we teach in the moment.
Well, likewise, and you mentioned this at the beginning. Becoming a father was for me a massive learning curve for all the obvious reasons, but also the awakening to the fact that children, and I could see that through observing my own child, but then of course by looking around and realizing, oh, they're all like that. They carry this wisdom that we've forgotten, and we've disconnected, I guess, from our own inner child, and we just assumed, oh, I grew up, I learned all this stuff. Once I've become aware of memory, which is like where the disconnect is, because we don't remember knowing those things, we assumed these were given to us. And I see him having outstanding ability for problem solving, that you would assume otherwise not to be possible, coming from...
But that's play. That is play. That is
Yes.
the power of play. Play is something that we really forget about and lose at our peril.
Yes.
Because, it's playing in the studio. It's watching people like Grayson Perry playing that leads to, this problem solving. It's the heart of critical thinking. Play is the work of childhood. I know that, Friedrich Frobel and other people said that, but, to be playful it's something that we freely choose. We're following our own dreams, ideas, visions. We'll persist at it. We will discover lots of things, and we will be satisfied because it's feeding us. And I think we dismiss play at our peril. We need to try to find playful activities right throughout our life, because that is where we will find the creative ideas.
Well, it is what we call doing music, play music. It's right there, and so often we even forget the power of language, which is perhaps a topic for another episode. But what would you then see as what's wrong, but also what's right about today's education?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we're in such an incredible, we're all in such a struggle, aren't we? So for this particular time, I don't think I could say that there's anything wrong with education, because I think, educators are on the front line, and it is, we are all surviving. So I just think that it is amazing what they are managing to do for families, and I think we're seeing the real professional love and compassion coming through. But if I step back, I suppose, from the current moment and think about opportunities for thinking differently, I think I would say to think about playfulness as the starting point for music learning. Not so much needing to necessarily learn technique, not necessarily needing to learn the elements of music, but to play with these things. We don't need to know necessarily what things are called at the start. We can experience. So I think, and it just to be playful, we do that a lot in early childhood, but I think it could filter a little bit more into the beginning of a more formal education, discovering things and being able to be curious and play with them. So I think that would be something I think would be marvelous to do. But I don't feel in a position at the moment to say anything really negative because of the time we're in.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. I think you're absolutely right. That the speed at which we've all adapted to this new reality, and it's outstanding. It's really a statement of resilience for everyone. I mean,
Exactly.
For everyone, educators, parents, students, humans.
Yeah, what I would think would be a shame to happen would be to forget about the arts when we start to recover. Because the arts are going to be the way that we can restore ourselves. And music has such a strong part to play in that. And it would be a real shame if we go back to really focusing on what might be considered the core subjects and to prioritize those because of everything that's been lost. I think that would be a real shame. I think, to try to make space still for things that some people might not consider to be as important. I think we could be missing a real opportunity for restoration and recovery, because I know how I have just spent time playing music during these days just to kind of keep myself feeling well. And I think that would be useful. Movement, dancing together to music, painting, playing with clay, sewing, things that we can express the things that you can't say, and I know Ian Cross talks about the wonderful ambiguity of music, the floating intentionality that means it can mean different things to the listener, to the person that's playing, but it's all valid, and that is the wonderful power of music. And to lose that as we recover, I think would be a massive shame.
I guess this is a bit of a selfish question, and I don't know if you have the answer, but how would you go about making the case for that, for the importance of that? Because we know that the public perception is not of that. Most people see music as it's a fun hobby, but not now. How would you make that case?
Well, I think it's unpicking the term music, because there are several things. Music can mean certain things to people because of their life experience. And so I think it's beholden on us really to open out what music can be. That it's not necessarily the Western classical tradition. It can be the music you listen to at home. It can be bringing it out and let's share our music in the street, like we saw in Italy, and things like that. It's making the music part of our community life and living. So there isn't a right way to do music, and there isn't a right music. There is a music that we feel and love because we've grown up with it, and that needs to find its space and the air somehow. In addition to that, I think there are messages that are coming from many quarters. I mean, even the OECD, I think, was promoting the importance of the STEM subjects, as a worldwide importance. So we have got messages that certain subjects are more important than others. In society, and it could be true. I don't know. It could be true. It could be that we do need to prioritize science and technology, our language and mathematics, and the arts still have a really important place to play in our thriving, in our flourishing as humans. So I think it's broadening out what in music is acceptable, and encouraging it as well as the core subjects.
Well, music and arts in general, of course, is where physics meets metaphysics, and that's something that STEM fields can't really. It's been the same issue with disciplines like philosophy. It's become very lost in the curriculums, that's for sure. I mean, it's seen as a fun degree that leads nowhere. That's how it's seen by this whole industrialized way of looking at curriculum, and that's why I asked the question, because I don't know how to make that case when faced against that need for training up the next generation of laborers. So it's a very difficult struggle that we as music educators have to contend with.
Yeah, I think also, and it's nobody's fault, but I think some people quite early in life can get the message that music isn't for them. They can feel not good enough, or
Mm-hmm.
they can feel that they're being assessed on outward displays of musicality, which might be singing, matching somebody's pitch. And actually, that is not necessarily a signifier of musicality. It could be that your vocal cords aren't developed sufficiently. It could be that you just can't find those notes, or it could be that actually you want to move and you want, you've got a different way of being musical. So I think it can be, we need to, it is useful for us to observe again, observing our learners and getting an idea about what interests them, and to try to keep that interest in a musical way going for as long as possible without putting in deficit boundaries and indicate that this music is not for them because they can't. Let's see what they can.
Yes. So what's your vision on, I guess I know now, but what's your opinion on the word talent and how it's used anyway in the
Yeah,
in
it is such a real contestable one.
I agree.
Talent isn't neutral. um, it's not a neutral word. Oh, sorry, my doorbell's gone.
That's okay.
Talent is often you will find that talent can be associated with privilege. And there are lots of things that one can see that could get in the way of somebody realizing their full potential. And those are things in society, those are things that from the very beginning in life will make somebody less able than somebody else to achieve their full potential. So yeah, I don't use that word very readily, I have to say.
Yeah, I've made a public statement amongst our teachers at the music school that I run and amongst my students, where we ought to replace the word talent with the word patience. So whenever we think, oh, that person is so talented, think again, maybe that word is so patient. They work through the obstacles. They have that resilience to just, I guess, navigate the problem solving aspect of, which is learning in a nutshell. But yes, the word it falls in line with the idea, Carol Dweck's idea of growth mindset, fixed mindset, and how talent, when attached to the fixed mindset side of things, is used as this predestined X factor that you've just been given, and then those who don't have it, well, you might as well give up.
Yeah, exactly. And there are many factors, even before a child would get to the point of, before a child even enters mainstream school, there are many factors that will enable one individual to thrive in learning, and others less so. So, it's addressing those deep-rooted inequalities, really, that I think are needed, rather than focusing on messages of, ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is missing when it comes to how we are currently training future teachers, PGCEs and things of that sort? What's missing?
Sorry, what's missing in the training of GCSEs, did you say?
Sorry. No, sorry, the training of teachers. So as teachers enter the workforce, they've often been given very specific instructions as to how to be teachers. So what do you think is missing? What should we add to that training to make the whole experience a bit more?
It's a
holistic.
very intense year, isn't it? I mean, the postgraduate certificate
Hmm.
year is a very intense year. So, it's nobody's. Again, I'm trying to go from the capacity point of view and not look at deficits. So, it's about having to get through an awful lot of material and information, and really a lot is learnt once one has completed this and one is out in the field working. I think one of the things that is so I find so valuable is to reflect with others and to have, a sort of peers that one can be able to reflect with on what one thinks about a teaching learning process and how to think that through deeply with other people. And I think very often when one's working in music, one can be quite isolated in a school or in in various contexts. And I think that a network of people that one can really trust to have deep conversations is one of the things that can take one on in one's learning about what it is to become a better teacher. So I think reflection and support and helping people, know that there are others around them on this journey, and to share together. So this is why a podcast like this is so incredibly valuable, I think, because it allows people to explore these deeper elements. But I think in addition, networks and forums and seminars and opportunities to share where one isn't going to be judged,
Hmm.
where every answer is taken with respect, those kinds of things, rather than being told, no, you're doing it the wrong way, you need to do it this way,
Yes.
to kind of be open and really curious to explore the deeper issues of our practice.
Hmm. Well, curiosity is a human nature trait that we can't escape, and it only leads to, when we try to, it only leads to frustration, and that's how you end up seeing the extremely high turnover when it comes to teachers within the first 5 years. The numbers are at 60% nowadays.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
scary. It's
yeah.
scary. 60% quit within, retire for good within the first 5 years.
And I wonder if a support mechanism would help this. The chance to feel more supported. I think that's what I've often encountered, is that people feel isolated.
Yep.
They're working very often with very little breaks, so they're working back to back.
Hmm.
At the end of a day, you've just basically got through the day,
Yeah.
and that can go on for years. So it's taking a pause and being able to reflect on who you are as a musician and who you are as an educator and who you are with your learners. That is a privilege. That's a privileged time. And I think we need to make time for that, because you can't keep on and on delivering and not grow.
Yes.
You're not going to grow that way.
Yeah. Yes. It goes back to if you want to be a presence that inspires and facilitates that growth experience, but you're not experiencing that yourself, how can you believe that pitch in a nutshell?
Precisely. Precisely.
And that is, and you nailed it, by the way. It's exactly the first four reasons why teachers quit and retire within the first 5 years is burnout, feeling of a lack of autonomy and agency over their the way they want to teach, and the vision they had for themselves gets taken away from them. It's overwork. They feel overworked, and it just goes on like that. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at the heart of what we're doing, at the heart of every good teacher, is a mission, what Korthagen talks about as the mission level. We are doing this work because we believe in something deeply about our desire to share the love we've found in music with others. And
mhm.
when that is compromised for whatever reason, goes to the heart of who we are. So I totally understand that feeling of, out of just losing all sense of what you got into this for. That is, really demoralizing. So I completely and utterly understand that. And I think perhaps we need a rising up of, networks to support one another and to remember what it is that we're doing this for, and why we're doing this. And I'm wanting to sort of flag up, we have a Masters in Education program at the RCM that is attracting a wonderful cohort of students, and that is the kind of environment that we are trying to develop there, to really be deeply reflective together and learn from one another. And I think, thinking about taking time to maybe go into master's study or something can be very helpful for people that are feeling they need more. They need to feel that there's more to this.
I'll make sure to put a link to the website so people can read on that master's. So I guess I'll finish with two questions. The first one is going to lead possibly into the second one. So, in a way, summarizing everything we've said so far, how can we bring meaning and love into pedagogy? If we were to just encapsulate that, and
I think that's what we've been talking about, isn't it? Really, I think that it's loving and caring for the teachers.
Yes,
that is what we really need to develop, a loving community of practice where we can feel that we are on a shared journey with a mission level that we can articulate for ourselves, that we know what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. And then we can work within the structures because we know the deep meaning that it has for us. So I think, Etienne Wenger talks so beautifully about communities of practice. And I think that, to feel that we are a community of shared practice across the music education sector, and there's so many people doing loads towards that, I think that really will be the beginning of feeling that we've got real meaning in our lives and a sense of purpose for what we're doing. And to look always to our learners, because it's through working with learners and their unique capacities and competencies that I learn more about how to be a teacher. So it's focusing on our learners and what they bring to a learning situation that continually helps me understand what it is this learning teaching process is. So I think being fascinated with our unique learners in front of us will be continually stimulating and interesting. So I think that's what brings the meaning and the pedagogical love, because we care about them and we care about this learning teaching process.
Absolutely. So to finish this conversation that's given me a lot of things to think about, I want to ask you a hypothetical question. If you were to have all your students, past and current, and you got them all together and you knew that today was going to be your last lesson, you've decided to retire, you're done, what would you talk about?
What I talk about, I think I would try to just make it about making music together, about sharing stories of our journeys, from when we were last together and where we are now, being about community, being about the joy that we've shared and the lessons that we've learnt together, and remembering, this deep thinking time and opportunities to reflect, and how that has been so rewarding and helpful for me. So I think it would be celebration and a sense of community and sharing and making music together.
Sounds like a good last lesson.
Thank you. Reflecting, yeah.
Reflecting, yes. I was going to say that there's that theme of self-reflection and sharing and being at creating a level playing field with our students. I am truly inspired, not only by your book, but by this conversation. This reinforces a lot of what I believe to be true. So I'm gonna try to carry the torch and do my very best to stay fascinated with my students, as I often do, because they seem to be far smarter than I am when it comes to technology. So they constantly.
Glad
right?
you didn't ask me about that. Yeah.
But now the question, some questions obviously I decided not to ask today because a conversation is a sharing experience. So I really appreciate your time today. I want to show the book one more time, and I'm going to put links on the show notes. Don't want to cover the title. There we go. Everyone should get this book. It's way more than just teaching music. It's about philosophy. It's about love. It's about meaning. It is about pedagogy at a very broad scale. So I would like to just ask you as a sign off, if there's anywhere, a website or anywhere you would like people to visit.
Oh my goodness. It depends what people are interested in. I mean, they can follow my profile on the RCM. Royal College of Music has got my profile, and my publications are there. I'd love to, if people are interested in real immersive early childhood arts, do check out the Magic Acorns website. And yeah, I've got a Twitter handle. They can follow me on Twitter if they want to. I can give you that.
I'll link it up. Yeah.
For information about upcoming seminars and conferences that I'm involved in organising. And if you'd like to be interested in following coming to apply for the Masters in Education, we would love that. Or anyone seeking to do a PhD, we are very happy to talk to people on that front. Me and my colleagues.
Fantastic. I'm gonna make sure to put all those links up on the show notes. In the meantime, is there any last thoughts that you'd like to share with the world of music educators?
Yeah, I would just want to thank you so much. One, for buying the book, and two, for reading it, and three, for being inspired so much to ask to have this conversation. I'll let my lovely colleague know as well. She'll be delighted. And I'm just really grateful for the chance to chat with somebody that clearly has a deep vision and heart for practice. So it's been a real joy to talk to you. Is it Xiao?
In England, it's just Joe.
Oh, and how should your name be said?
João.
João. Well, thank you so much, João.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Yeah,
it's my pleasure. Likewise. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the podcast. As always, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share, comment, and rate. The usual stuff. I very much look forward to seeing you guys next week, and in the meantime, learn better. Take care.